Well, thank you so much for still being with us here in Morning at NTV. Now we get into the discussions for the day. Our Kickstart is going to be focusing on the inside of the voter register update exercise that kicked off yesterday, as well as checks and balances in the voter register update exercise, where we stand today and now. In this era, we should be expecting a lot more from some of the handlers of these processes, case in point, the Electoral Commission, and of course Africa's direction in Trump's second term, as well as the Security Committee on CDF Digital Social Presence. Those are going to be some of the discussions that I'm going to be having with my guests this morning. I am Priscilla Regina Naluga. Welcome to our Kickstart. A backbone of our focal point, which is the voter register update exercise. We look at the Electoral Commission that has commenced the general update of the National Voters Register that was conducted starting yesterday, the 20th of January. It's going to be running all the way to the 10th of February 2025. And one of the fundamental questions in between there is that enough time for the voting population of Uganda? But anyway, it's in compliance with Article 61 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, Section 20 of the Electoral Commission Act, and this is Cap 176, that does state the Electoral Commission will conduct a general update of the National Voters Register in preparation for the general elections 2025-2026. The update, however, has had a slow start on day one, which day one has been captured within the framework of the dailies this morning. Page 2 and 3 of the national news in the Daily Monitor does cover that. But as we look into the guests this morning and what their 2 cents are on these matters of national importance, let's just give you a recap of what day one was like from different parts of the country.
Article 61 of the Constitution of Uganda gives the Electoral Commission the mandate to compile, maintain, revise and update the voters register. Now, in exercise of this mandate, the Electoral Commission has commenced general update of the voters register in each parish or ward across the country.
This is to give an opportunity to those first-time voters to turn up at the various registration centers across the country and apply to register as voters. You must be a Ugandan citizen of 18 years and above.
The activity also aims to give opportunity to individuals who wish to transfer their voting location from where they voted from in the previous general election to a new one. For instance, Ronald Lubega voted in Kamocha in Kampala Central Division during the 2021 general elections, but has since relocated to Kisenyitu Parish, where he now resides. He is among the individuals who turned up for the day one of the update of the National Voters Register.
I shifted from this side and I built the other side, so I really felt comfortable. The distance was not disturbing me. I will be in time when it is time for voting.
Whereas the update of the National Voters Register should be taking place in every parish and ward across the country, the exercise is yet to catch momentum in most parishes and wards in the capital, Kampala. A mini survey conducted by NTV in various places in the city established that few people turned up for the activity in most places, while other stations had no people at all. Some officials actually had faulty gadgets.
I didn't know it was the official launch. Reaching here, I'm told it's the official launch. Our local leaders are not informed. We didn't know.
It is so unfortunate. Such an activity, a big activity like this one, should be really organized well, no tent, no sound system. We have a lot of questions. They have really combined villages. People had their questions. They didn't give us time. It is so disappointing.
Nonetheless, the Electoral Commission hopes that more people will turn up for the update of the National Voters Register in the coming days. The activity will last for approximately 20 days. The National Identification and Registration Authority officials have also been deployed in order to enroll new people to the National Identification Register.
Having successfully been registered, their name can now also reflect into the Electoral Commission Register.
Meanwhile, the number of voters in the forthcoming general elections is expected to be slightly more than the 2021 figure.
In 2021, we had about 18.4 million. Our projection was that we would add about 4 million voters. So our projection is about 22 million voters.
Daniel Kibet, NTV.
Kibet. I'm sure that my guests in studio with me were also able to observe this process as it kickstart off, and they're going to be talking to us about, first of all, the importance of this process and what should be the objectives right from the nation, through the Electoral Commission, through us as nationals and voting Ugandans, but also to the democracy and politics of the country. I am being joined by Hassan Kirumira MP, Katikamu South, who is to my extreme left. Happy New Year.
Compliments. Happy New Year to you too, Christian.
How are you?
I'm good, and good morning, Ugandans.
Your constituents there?
We're managing, of course, the people of Katikamu South, people of Luwero, and Ugandans at large. Compliments for the new season. It's a year of politics, as you already noted with this exercise of the EC. Gearing into elections 2026 is underway. Okay. And we're ready for it.
Yeah. You're ready for the many to-bes that are coming up against you?
Of course, politics is about competition. It would be absurd if you are unopposed in politics. For us, I think my competitors are now around 15. Vying for the same post, and that shows you the level of democracy within our constituents, because I think it is everyone's right to contest, and of course it's up to the people to elect the leader they believe is going to shift them from where they are to a whole new level. I want to believe, given my mandate for this term, I've achieved most of the things that we agreed with my voters, and ready to go back and seek for another mandate in terms of leadership, representing my people. The big focus is the core values of leadership, and that I've tried to hold on to, and representing them in Parliament, of course focusing on the 4 major roles of a member of Parliament: legislation, representation, oversight, and all that. I'm good, and we're ready to go.
Okay. How many constituents are you representing?
I represent 1 constituency. It's 6 sub-counties: Ndeje, Makulubita, Nyimbwa, Bombo, Katikamu, and Woodlands. Woodlands is my hometown. What's the population? Previously, if you look at the voter turn-up in the previous election in my constituency alone, it was around 100,000 people, plus minus 100,000 people. Of course, the turn-up was not the expected one. More so, and then the whole district, of course, you look at in terms of numbers, whether people are going to register now. I don't know if it was actually 18 million people as per the chairperson of the EC. I want to believe the turn-up was not up to 18 million. If you, maybe political analyst will help us. But in terms of statistics, we need to encourage Ugandans to participate in this process of elections. Okay. We're telling people this is a protest vote. As opposition, as the National Unity Platform, we want mass turn-up of Ugandans. We need them to protest against government through these coming elections, and we take over leadership.
All right, we're also being joined by Timothy Chemonges, who is always observing Ugandan politics, and I know that he has his 2 cents to the matter. But Happy New Year, and how does the new year look like as far as election journey is for us as Uganda?
Thank you, Priscilla. Happy New Year to you and to our viewers. Glad to be here. The year really looks very optimistic. There is quite a lot in the stock. But I think more importantly is the election process, really, in terms of ensuring the citizens can contribute to the democratic dispensation of this country. In terms of some of the things that we are looking forward to this year, we see that members of parliament, again the challenge is the attrition rate of members of parliament in terms of the citizens turning up for most of these elections. It is true that the registered voters, the electorate, as indicated by the EC chair, was 18 million. But again, the turn-up usually is...
those that committed to vote and those that actually vote, those are two different figures.
That was quite low. We were around 60 to 70%, which is quite low. But ultimately, I think it is desirable that you have a bigger number of the electorate participating in this process. Again, looking at elections as a process and not just as an event. And maybe as we shall be looking here, is to see that the ongoing process of the voter register update, while we can give it a benefit of doubt really in terms of day one, there are quite a number of shortfalls here and there that greatly affects how the citizen participate or the electorate will participate into this process.
Okay. Before we go into the shortfalls, what are the objectives of this particular process towards the elections?
So thank you so much. The fundamental objective and prime at that is to ensure that citizens can be able to participate and they find themselves in the register, for which becomes a premise document that will facilitate the general elections and also these other the affirmative seats elections. More importantly, is also to ensure that the citizens are aware. The citizens can participate, the citizen understand what is going, and more importantly is to really look at the bigger picture of what democracy looks like, that it is anchored on the people, and the people will be part of the process, and they can decide who represents them. They can meaningfully engage in this process, but also more importantly is to look at the outcome of most of these elections, looking at the leadership that is elected. They need to be held accountable, they need to be supported, they need to be they need to work along with the citizens to realize most of their challenges. Unfortunately, you see there's quite a big gap, and even as Honorable here highlights that he's been able to achieve most of the items that they agreed with the electorate. I think there's a fundamental problem in terms of the premise for which the electorate decide who becomes a member of parliament. Beyond the roles, you know, as you can be an excellent legislator, and you've not delivered a borehole in the constituents. You've not been participating in some of these barrier arrangement and the schools and what have you, which again, it's desirable that we should have the electorate.
You didn't give them sugar.
You didn't give them the sugar and some of these things. And so at the end of the day, you find that the citizen get shortchanged really. And so, but more importantly, it is the role of the Electoral Commission and really the rest of us to ensure that we can continuously engage the public to understand the roles of some of these leaders and what the benchmark for which we should hold them accountable.
All right. Yeah. Speaking of public engagements, Honorable, in that capacity, how have you been able to engage with your people to encourage them to participate in some of these processes, because you need to have the 100,000 or even more coming up to participate actively in the next electoral cycle?
Of course, leadership is an engagement exercise with your voters. You need to connect, find synergy, and deal with each other. Sometimes it's very tough for politicians, but on a personal level, I live with my people, and we together most of the time, and where needs be, we have always gathered. Like for example, during this exercise of the coffee bill, we gathered, I invited them at Hooglands, and you agree. And then of course we organize local meetings at village levels, try to listen to their needs. But like he said, it is our responsibility as leaders to educate and sensitize our voters about the roles of a member of parliament. Because when you go there are so many expectations. Actually, to voters, a member of parliament is more like government within the constituency. And the expectations are always very high. They expect you to put medicine in the hospital. They expect you to construct and refurbish the roads. They expect you to drill and build boreholes. They expect you to build churches. And so the expectations of our voters is so huge on a member of parliament. Of course, like any other leader, you have to find a way of at least making a meaningful contribution to your community, working with other stakeholders, donors. 1 or 2 or 3 people can come in and support you in terms of uplifting your community, making a meaningful contribution to their economics and household activities. And that's what we are trying to do as leaders, getting friends, of course locally and internationally, to come in and support the well-being of your people. That is besides the core roles of a member of parliament. And I want to believe as an individual, I've gone far in terms of doing that.
Okay. Now, on we've seen political parties, National Unity Platform being one of those. The NRM have been very vocal in recent weeks, making sure that they're driving as much momentum, sensitization and mobilization towards their people to go and verify their information in these registers. That part of the process is not being elaborated to the people, the masses, from the the party side. Why is that so?
Of course, you want to believe that it is the role of EC first and foremost.
Yes, primarily, but you're the beneficiaries of this
sensitize people as to whether they have sensitized Ugandans beyond 80%. The current exercise is questionable. Our responsibility, of course, as leaders is to help the EC in terms of that, and we are doing that. I'm personally putting up a drive in my constituency, at least for 3 days, to sensitize people. We have local radios. We want to use them and mobilize our people to go and check the registers, those who are interested in transfers. And actually, let me take this opportunity to encourage our voters in Katikamu South, in Luwero districts, and Ugandans at large to participate in this EC exercise, because come January 2026, we want you to vote. We want you to go and protest against this government through casting your vote. And the only way you can do that is through registering now and getting that, becoming a voter. And that exercise is taking place now. It's within a short period of time. I'm not so sure if 3 weeks is sufficient enough, because if you look at what had happened yesterday at different centers, the turn-up was very poor. Whether it's going to improve over these coming days, I do not know. But of course, our responsibility as leaders is to encourage our people to participate in this exercise. And EC should not sleep on the job. It is your duty as EC to engage the country.
Do you feel the AC has done a good job in terms of mobilization and sensitization for this particular exercise?
No, I think they haven't. Maybe they are going to do it. But you go to our different villages in Katikamu South, people do not know what's happening, even in townships. People do not know what is happening. Maybe they just see people sitting there. They don't know what is happening. But I want to believe in the next few days things are going to change, because politicians are going to pick it up. Very unfortunate, when we get involved, people will think now we are politicizing, we are making this political, why is he mobilizing this and that. But I want to convince my people I'm going to come in very hard in terms of encouraging and sensitizing my people in Katikamu South to participate in this exercise of voting, or protest vote, as we call it, come 2026.
Mr. Chemonges, it's a pity that Honorable has to contribute to the work of the Electoral Commission that has been fully funded to do exactly that, mobilization and sensitization. And given the fact that we have a very small window, 22 days for this exercise to verify, correct and register new voters, 18 to 20 million Ugandans is the expectation from this side, looking at previous statistics. But yet, mobilization and sensitization seem to be failing this exercise right from the onset.
I think that the 21 days would be sufficient with enough sensitization. with having the public aware and understand on the questions of how, where, when. I was calling back some of my colleagues at home and just trying to check whether they're already participating in this process. And most of them tell me that they're really not aware of where they would go. And if the area where they voted last time is where they should register. So there's quite a bit of knowledge gap in that area. And I think that we let's give it a bit of maybe a benefit of doubt as we've just had the first day. Maybe we may end up having more people coming on board and the citizens really participating in the process.
Taking the assessment of the national population census that was held last year, when you assess the two exercises, it's pretty much one and the same. But that exercise for the population census came to the ears of Ugandans a few weeks before the exercise could kick off. By the end of the exercise, we even had an extension, some extended days, so that as many Ugandans could be captured as far as data is concerned. But even then, where we stand today, so many Ugandans out there saying we were never participating in this exercise. And so looking at that observation, when you compare and contrast, where are the shortfalls or the gaps and loopholes that the Electoral Commission should be observant of, maybe not for now or today, but for the next electoral cycle, but also in reflection of the general elections of 2021. They still had the same issue, and people came out to advise them that civic education prior to such an exercise as a voter register update was very important. And then they committed that they would do so. We're not seeing that commitment being fulfilled in this cycle.
That's true. I think that whatever we are facing is a replica of what happened in the previous elections, really. But it goes again on the premise of proper planning. Proper coordination with the different stakeholders to ensure that there's a wider sensitization and civic awareness. But also, more importantly, if you look at the budget of EC, you'll see that not so much resources are put towards civic engagement and civic awareness for the public.
Yes, but they do have partnerships that they can do with the Ministry of ICT and the communication departments in order to have this information out there at zero cost, really. That's not an excuse.
Absolutely. So the point, even beyond the Ministry of ICT, you have the religious groups, you have the political parties, you have the local structures that we already have in place, utilizing those platforms. So it's a matter of planning, it's a matter of organization, but also looking at it from the angle to whom does this sort of challenges benefit. I think that it benefits no one. It goes and greatly affects the premises of democracy, to ensure that many Ugandans actually will some of them will get to realize actually when it's past the time. But I think that it's more important for us to emphasize that the Electoral Commission, which has this mandate to ensure that it coordinates, it engages the different players, it pushes. We still have a bit of window where they can engage the public. Not all is lost, but unfortunately, I think it's a factor that it's a replica of what has been happening, and we are likely to see a same situation. And what that means is we've had recently the discussions around the young people who will be turning 18 years in the coming months past the date for February 10th. And looking at the statistics, you have over 1 million young people who are likely to who will actually turn 18 years in the coming months before the general elections, and all of those ones will not participate in the elections. And what that means is that you have a bigger number of young people not participating in this process, let alone those who are not aware of what is happening currently. So that greatly affects how the citizens participate in this process, but also more importantly the outcome of the results.
Okay. All right. Honorable, from where you seated, the 20 days or to 22 days that the Electoral Commission has designated for this exercise to cover the 18 to 20 million Ugandans expected on the voter register update, is it enough?
I think it is just intentional and deliberate by the EC and government to keep it short so you can exclude so many people. Like he rightly said, so many people are turning 18 and going into the bracket of voters, especially the youth. And we all know that most of these youth are anti-government because of what government is doing, and they see what is happening in our country. I don't want to believe that the EC would be interested, or government would be interested for this new block of voters to join the voters register, because they'll vote for opposition. So then that's why, that explains why they are so deliberate and intentional to keep it short, just to woodwink Ugandans that we are ready to do this, we're going to do this, but within a short period of time. I do not want to believe that that is going to be successful exercise in this short period of time. If government wanted to be inclusive, it should have involved the local leaders at all levels, LCs, because if you want to register voters in Uganda, it is very easy. You have local leaders from LCs, your councillors, your chairpersons for sub-counties, mayors, and of course upwards to members of parliament. But they sideline that category of leadership, and then of course want to implement their their roles within areas that belongs to leaders. I don't want to believe that that is the right way to do things. That simply shows you government is just intentional in terms of eliminating the would-be people to oppose government. And that's why it is our responsibility as the opposition, political parties, to wake up and sensitize Ugandans, especially the youth, to participate in this exercise. Let's bombard them and they get a shock of their life when we register and do a protest vote come 2026.
All right, it's a food for thought really, because you'd be thinking that some of these initiatives and programs should be guided by our recent UBOS report on our population. So that means that with a bigger population, some of these exercises ought to be given more time in order to consider the new elements that are in the statistics for people with disabilities, to the young people, inclusion, and so there seems to be a misalignment of commitment as far as government is concerned in making sure that it's a holistic delivery of democracy to its people. Timothy?
So in 2014, I was together with the group of civil society really. We moved around the country on what then we call the Citizen Compact, picking the views of the people and the different stakeholders in terms of what elections should be, and some of the recommendations that we thought would put to we actually placed before the Electoral Commission and government to uptake. And among those was the question of civic awareness, which was very, very important, and we thought, and we still think that if taken seriously, we can go a long way in ensuring that the public, the citizenry, understand and appreciate what is going on, and they can push and demand for better. The outcome of that, we had quite a number of recommendations for which the people contributed and thought that government needed to put in place. Unfortunately, the only success that we saw then was the adoption of the word independent in the title of the Electoral Commission. And so most of these things remain unresolved, and we think that even as we move forward, there can be quite a number of the government can be more deliberate in how they address most of these things, but also more importantly.
But Timothy, if you're saying the government being more deliberate, and you're referring to 2014, then there was 2016, 2017, then there was 2020, 2021. So if that has not been applied within those two windows, why should it be? Why should Ugandans expect any different for the next window?
Again, it is the desire of the people that the election process and the outcome reflect their aspirations, their wishes, as stipulated within the Constitution. And it is true that most of these recommendations, and together with all these other suggestions that different stakeholders have suggested, most of them seem not to have been adopted. I think the ultimate direction and the ultimate push for us is to ensure that we go back to the citizens, that the citizens can push, the citizens can demand, and the citizen can meaningfully participate in this process. We've seen that we are operating a top-bottom approach, where most of the decisions, most of the discussions really are around the political class, around the leadership, and what does it, how it fits within the needs of the political class. There's very little that is seen in terms of how the people would be participating in this process, and let alone just the elections. Even in terms of how we look at decision making in the government, how our legislators, how the leadership, both at the local government level and at the national level, view and include the decisions, the aspirations of the people. There is a great mismatch in that level, and to that end, I think that the citizens have to continue pushing, and it is our role. It is the role of the media and the different leaders to ensure that we can engage and continuously sensitize the public. Okay, all right. Yeah.
Honorable, you do have some complimentary remarks?
Of course. During this exercise, I don't know if it's within the interest of the EC to extend it for a period of 2 months, at least 2 months, maybe 3 weeks, and you expect the entire exercise to be done across the entire country is a little bit unacceptable.
This is with inclusion of load shedding, weather changes. Adoption of digital tools in this exercise.
Even locality, you'll find out that some areas are very far, not easy to accessibility. Even the roads, getting deep in Makulubita, in some of our parishes, deep in the village, getting there and then of course moving back and forth. And these are people that have their own responsibilities as families, as farmers, businesses, and all that. So I think 2 months period will be sufficient if we really want to be inclusive and want to bring every Ugandan on board to join the voter register. So as EC, you need to sit back and reevaluate, maybe along the way, but I want to believe that the 2 months period would be sufficient if we are meaning to be inclusive in the interest of Ugandans to participate in this exercise.
Okay. One of the other limitations that has been so pronounced on day one is the national identification card, and some of those that are expired or about to be expired. Now, you do have NIRA that was meant to be having a national exercise for renewing of national identity cards nationwide, but because the building in which you sit and the room in which you sit, decisions were made budgets wise, the money was not allocated for this exercise. Very much knowing, you know, the cycle is around the corner and this information is very important. And so one of the challenges that people faced on day one is, you know, the issue of verification, national identity cards and them being expired, which then does not allow them to get their information verified with the Electoral Commission. Now, by the time they can engage NIRA and process their documents rightfully, the 3 weeks are going to be bygone. So, again, mismatch of holistic government alignment towards commitment of good governance and democracy.
It's double standards. Which one should come first? Is it the ID process or joining the voters, registering people in the voters register? So if government cannot do things systematically, and that's why we are going to get into nose diving. We keep telling people this government has problems in terms of implementation of its mandate, because I mean really, how can you implement voter registration if people do not have IDs? How can you do that when people's IDs are expiring? Because we know most of the biggest batch of the IDs that were issued in 2015, 2014, 2015, 2016 are expiring during this period of time. And I want to believe EC is working with NIRA to sort that out And of course, then you have this new entrants that we've been talking about that have never gotten an ID. And of course, the EC is telling us that those that new category, new entrants are going to use their NIN number during this registration process. So it shows you there's a whole lot of issues that need to be sorted by EC as soon as possible for this exercise to be successful. But we shall continue to remind them that they have to do things the right way. They need to go back on the drawing board, analyze, evaluate this exercise. Maybe during the coming days, we are going to get news from EC about the way forward. But doing things backwards and forward, I think it's double standards. And that's not how we are supposed to run the country.
Okay, Timothy, from where you're seated, Honorable says that the EC should be able to have an upper hand in some of these issues, but the EC has no mandate over NERA's objectives. Neither does NERA have any mandate or obligations towards the Electoral Commission and its processes. Yet at a point X, you get to see that they have to interact with each other in order to have a holistic process that is met. You do have a comment coming in here from one of the parish leaders, John Baptist Kola, resident in Chebando Parish, turning out with his national identification card, and is expecting that there should be at least a NERA person seated there to help guide on, okay, if this is where your status is on the national ID, what is the translation of that to getting your information verified on this other end. How can the two work together? Because it's important that they work together, whether through this exercise or throughout the whole electoral cycle until we get to the general elections in 26.
So the data that NERA collects, it should inform government processes, right from the Electoral Commission and these other government services that we have. We see that they have successfully enrolled that with URSB and some of these other government processes that we're seeing. But it is to the extent of, while the mandates are quite different, it is the responsibility at the government level to ensure that data that is collected is used across the different entities, and that you should not expect, to the extent that you have my data, do not expect again for me to go and start the process of registering and providing the same data in a manual manner to another institution. And I think that looking at the current process, I know that the Electoral Commission actually has access to that data of the citizens. It has that access. So it's to the extent to which the Electoral Commission is willing to utilize that data for the good governance, but also for the smooth operation of this process. I've seen that everyone, I think all the citizens have access to their NINs, even the minors, and that data can allow the Electoral Commission and all other stakeholders to project, to provide clear guidance in how some of these processes are used. And so I think that all this again lies with the Electoral Commission, because again we are focusing on elections. It's the Electoral Commission ensuring and being very deliberate in how it utilizes the data that it has access to for the better operations of the elections. All
right, gentlemen, I'm going to allow you to take some water as we go into a break, and then when we return, we look at a full assessment of day one. What was it like across different parts of the country, and observations that were picked by my pundits this morning, and how those can be improved on as we continue on with this exercise. It's still Morning at NTV. Do stay with us. All right, we're still continuing on with Morning at NTV. Focal point has been on the voter register exercise update and checks and balances, which my guests this morning have done justice. A Honourable Member of Parliament, Katikamu South, that is Hassan Kirumira, as well as Timothy Chemonges, a political analyst, have done a good job on painting us the really objectives, importance and the purpose of this exercise and why you should participate in it, the loopholes that be in. Now, speaking of loopholes, we had the opportunity to traverse different parts of the country yesterday as Nation Media Group to just observe and see how day one of this exercise was going. A few queries did come through the pipeline. This is what our reporters captured on ground.
They need t-shirts. The media. Yes.
Excuse me.
Should I steal?
I'm going.
Those that are 18 years and above are the only ones eligible to vote, and so that is the category we are taking care of. Remember, the national ID expiry date was extended by the responsible ministries, so it still works. As long as you have the NIN number and you want to access a service here with regard to voting, definitely you get it.
So we're going to have the transfer booklets. We are going to have the form EC confirmation for those who want to transfer. As you're giving this form, you also give them this one. They should come with this one from the LCs, okay? Confirming that they are residents in that area or they originate from that village where they want to transfer to. Okay, so this one and these ones are going to move together. So now you're going to transfer booklet. Let's listen. It's the starting day and we have experienced some delays, especially with the kits. Yes, the kits, some of the batteries are not working very well, and because we needed quite a number of kits in the city, we had the NIRA people had to get us some extra kits, so we realized that some of them need some extra attention.
As Kumi, we have started this exercise very well and successfully. We have, in every sub-county, this activity is taking place at the update centers that have been designated by us. There are those who have earlier attempted to register, but they have not been successful. We are also capturing such categories. And then we have students who have been enrolled by NIRA, but previously they have not yet made 18 years. We are going to ensure that they enter the voters register.
Just near the mosque, that's where we normally poll from, and that's where he registered initially from. And there's nobody seen there. There's no activity, not even a table is there to show that there's an activity that will take place here.
This morning, people from my area here came to my home asking for the update of the voters registers as announced by the Electoral Commission. But up to now, I've not seen any official around here. When I called the sub-county supervisor, he told me that they only have one machine in the whole sub-county.
All right, those are some of the moments that were captured of day one of the voters register update that is being conducted by the Electoral Commission. Let me have observations from my pundits this morning. Timothy, what have been your observations and pick-outs so far? And moving forward, what would you also give as recommendations so that within these 22 days, this exercise can be as successful as expected?
So my observation really in terms of the officials that are actually being charged with the responsibility, at least the foot soldiers, I see they are quite enthusiastic in ensuring that the process runs and they do the update of the register. But challenges extending to the limited number of people actually visiting the premises, which could be informed by quite a number of reasons really, not just the question of awareness. I think also being a Monday, you have people running up and down, going to make a living really, and so there are quite a number of reasons as to why the number could have been a bit low, but nonetheless, I think let's see what the coming days look like in terms of the kits not working. Some of those being delivered, as indicated, there are some parts in the northern region actually had not yet received some of these kits. It goes to speak to the organizations, but also to the readiness of this process. The expectation is that as of day one, at least the EC is ready, as at a bare minimum. You are ready to receive the public. it should be on the shortfall of the public not be either participating in this process or not showing up. But at least at the bare minimum, the Electoral Commission should be ready. In terms of the different stakeholders, the religious groups, the cultural groups, now the political parties and all the other stakeholders, I think that there's a gap there, where the Electoral Commission again should be able to coordinate and take lead in this. While they have the mandate, they should take advantage of already established structures. The population or the audience or some of these groups, say the churches, you have the political parties and all the other parties, seeing how we can collectively work, including the civil society organizations, which also play a very critical role in how the country runs. And so I think that there is a lot of expectation again from by the public on the Electoral Commission to ensure that they deliver on this, because this again is just part of the process. From this now we can go into the actual process where the citizens can cast their vote, and you don't want to find a situation where the public in the day of elections actually is confused further. We should use this as an opportunity. I think we've lost a lot in terms of ensuring that the public can understand, the public can know what is happening, and so meaningfully participate in the process. As a recommendation, I think that going forward, the Electoral Commission, first of all, I'm not so sure if the Electoral Commission really takes recommendations, because some of these challenges, they are recurring diseases. And while we think that they listen, while we think they take in some of these recommendations, the manifestation of the same problem over and over is a clear indication that they have their own way of working.
They knew,
or there is a script.
We listen, but we don't judge.
We listen, but we don't judge. Or there could be a script already that they are following, a thing that we don't want to believe. But more importantly, we expect that they should be able to listen and make most of this work. Some of these procedural issues that are happening, they are simply a factor of organizations, let alone the political influence of how some of these things. So it goes into the operations, it goes into planning of the Electoral Commission to ensure that the citizens are part and process of this process. Thank you.
All right, Honorable, your observations and recommendations thereof.
My observation is that EC is ready within their buildings, their offices, but on ground they are not ready. Rolling out an exercise of this magnitude that speaks to the rights of Ugandans requires EC to do extra work in terms of making sure that they are ready to roll out the exercise in different areas. Of course, they communicated that 37,000 centers are going to be used to register, and of course people transferring polling stations. But you've evidently seen that in so many areas of the country, people did not see any member from the EC. And that simply tells you EC was not ready for the day. Like I said in my earlier submissions, maybe in the coming days, we are going to see some changes in this exercise. But where we are now, if we are making an analysis, a critical analysis of day one, as it was by yesterday, it was a complete failure on the side of EC. We have to do better. And I think for Ugandans, for Uganda as a country, we have to do better as EC in terms of making sure that this exercise is done properly. And that's what I hope we are going to do in the coming days. Let's work with stakeholders, let's work with political parties. There's no reason as to why we must confine this to the NRM and NRM people. I don't believe that is the right way to go. Bring political parties on board, bring local leaders on board, bring religious leaders, cultural leaders. Let's try to participate and make sure that we are inclusive for the greater good of Ugandans.
All right. Picking philosophy from your submissions, I would say political will, if not arrived at yesterday, will not be arrived at tomorrow. If the Electoral Commission has had these setbacks time memorial before, as an Electoral Commission, they should want to perform better. You know, as those that are overseers of this exercise, they should want to perform better, because what is happening here is what has been happening in the general elections. On day one, this is the same problems that we are facing on day one, day two, and day fourth. And so for such a small exercise, if these are the reflections of such a small exercise, what's the reflection of this to the actual exercise come 2026? Anyway, as we move on, we're going to be joined by Julius Manguzi from the Electoral Commission, the spokesperson. There's something else that they're adding to this exercise. There's an online platform that has been opened only on the weekends, though. One wonders from what time to what time, who's eligible, where do they access this platform, which areas and zones are accessible to this platform to also verify your information online. Our reporter Stephen Bede is going to be having a sit down with him. But as we put bed to this conversation, let's talk about the electoral reforms. You do have Uganda citizens compact free and fair elections, demanding credible and independent judiciary which can competently and credibly judicate on the electoral disputes that are arising after polls ever so often. Now, we're having around 268 days to go, and this means that for the nomination of presidential candidates for the 2026 polls, many political parties and pressure groups have actually been pushing for critical reforms in the last couple of months to ensure that the electoral cycle this time round is more transparent, is much more fairer, and of course it is free. One of the key reforms proposed so far is that the Chief Justice takes over the country's presidency for the last 6 months before the appointed poll date. And then parties also have been demanding for a total ban on army involvement in elections, putting a cap on campaign spending, and then also forming a lot of other things, for example, anyway, there are quite a number of recommendations that have been coming through from different political parties and entities here and there. But it's a raft of reforms that needs to be put into consideration. Timothy, could you talk to us about this raft of reforms and how they can actually move this country into a better place as far as democracy and governance is concerned?
Thank you, Priscilla. I think that, first of all, we've got to understand that these electoral reforms have both financial, have implications on the elections. And what that means is that they have to be timely, they have to be, they have to offer the different stakeholders an opportunity to input into some of this process. We've seen so far two sides of the reforms. One by the former leader of opposition, Matthias Mpuga, who had been granted leave by Parliament to introduce some of these, but I think that he has not yet tabled them. We've also seen the Minister of Justice suggesting quite a number of reforms. They have not yet seen the light of the day, but the point of the fact that is we do not have time. Again, we are in the budget process, and for which these reforms have a direct implications on how the election stands out. So for me, more importantly, is that we're out of time. There is no time really for reforms, and more importantly is to look at these reforms as an integral part in our elections. And so what that means is that they must come at least 3 years as the Supreme Court has guided before. We've had several recommendations that have been put forth by the Supreme Court. Some of them have never been acted upon, and that greatly undermines how our electoral process looks like. Because again, at the end of the day, the subsequent election should find you much better, much prepared, and much ready to have this process. So to the extent that you are not taking some of these processes seriously, it undermines the democracy and the participation of the people. in elections.
All right, speaking of readiness and preparedness, we're being joined by Julius Manguzi, head of the Public Relations Office with the Electoral Commission. Stephen Bide is standing next to him. And Stephen, one of the things that we want to have really understanding about is the introduction of an online platform to complement the voter register update exercise. How does it work? Because from my understanding, that platform is only available on the weekends. To whom is it available? At what times is it available? And how functional is this platform, among other considerations that he's to talk to us about?
Priscilla, good morning to you. First of all, I would want to understand whether you yourself were able yesterday to go at that polling station or polling center where you are registered to cast your vote from, whether you are still on the register. But before you even answer that, I know so many people up to now, they haven't been able to verify whether...
Indeed, and there was no register.
That's why I'm going to be taking these concerns to the head of public relations and spokesperson of the Electoral Commission, Julius Manguzi. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you, and thank you for having me.
I've found you trying to monitor whether the exercise is still going on from different places, and here we are. First of all, how did day one go for you?
Day one, I must say, went well. It was a mixed bag, but in the planning of the commission, we were aware that there will be some places where, some hard-to-reach places, for instance, where the materials may not reach exactly in time. But we are talking about day one. On day one, we want to thank Ugandans who turned up and heeded the messages that the Commission has been putting out there to tell them that the commencement of the general update of the National Voters Register was commencing yesterday, the 20th, and that it will end on the 10th of February. In the planning of the Commission, as mentioned, we know that there are patterns of turn-up and performance of the exercise. Day ones always, on almost any occasion, are characterized by people getting prepared, showing up for the first time, taking the information they have had to the exact centers. Now we are confident that with day one out of the way and the flagging off of the exercise taking place yesterday, our teams are now fully constituted on the ground, and we believe that the subsequent days, today, tomorrow, and the subsequent days, will be much more better, and we expect more turnout and more organization at every location in our parishes across the country. But let me also say that yesterday, we had told our parish supervisors who are deployed in every parish across the country that the day one will involve communicating to the public.
That's where I wanted to take you on, because many people up to now say they don't have that information, and that there are also concerns from some political leaders that you are using a few media houses to spread out the information, that people don't have the information. And even if you sample some of those ones who are passing by, you see that they don't know about this exercise.
So the Commission is using all means of communication to reach the people. But the most effective means of communication in exercises of this nature is having people on the ground in the parishes where our parish supervisors are deployed. These parish supervisors are telling the people in the parishes that, look, this is the place we are going to meet today. Tomorrow we will be at this other location. In these localities, there are places that people know that they meet to congregate and get information. At trading centers, at markets, at churches, at schools. And that is precisely the work that our people on the ground are doing. We call them our foot soldiers on the ground, the ones where the rubber is meeting the tarmac in this exercise. So you can expect that by the end of today, everybody in the parishes, because the operation is at the parish, we are, of course, as well using the media. We are here, we've been on TV, on radios. We are using our digital spaces, especially for the young people. We have amplified our digital platforms on social media, on X, on WhatsApp groups. We believe and we know and we are confident that the message is reaching. Those who are not reached will be reached, and that this exercise will, as expected and as we call upon the Ugandans to participate, be successful.
You know, when you talk about the digital spaces, some people are saying that why can Electoral Commission use that digital space by having them, wherever they are,
they can just log on and then they know that, yes, they are still on the register, and maybe click somewhere for you to know that, yes, so Stephen Mbide has verified that he's voting from, or he's registered from Machindye, so he will just automatically, you just enter that name.
It is actually possible. And we have been sharing this URL, this link of the website of the Electoral Commission, www.ec.or.ug. When you open that link, the first page that comes has a section where you will enter your NIN, the National Identification Number. When you enter it in that space, it will bring you the details. So for those who are confirming that they are still on the register, that there are no discrepancies in their particulars, you are able actually to do that and confirm it.
Okay, I mean also even these ones who want to register just for first time, those who are just turning 18 and they just want to register, can they do that online?
The building of the National Register over time has experienced developments and improvements in technology. I know, for instance, that in 1996, those registers were manual, and the pictures, I don't even know whether there were pictures, but there was manual. Over time, the technology has been used to improve the efficiency of even compiling the voters' register. Today, we are talking about biometrics. Those were not there. Today, we are talking at BVK machines. Those were not there before. So, we have not reached where somebody can update or register as a voter without...
For the case of the passport, you are seated on your computer, just fill in your details, and then automatically Minister of Internal Affairs receive your credentials.
But you know, you need your biometrics are required. I am not aware of a technology today that takes biometrics through air. Maybe we shall reach there, but for now, there is a requirement that you should show up. You have your particulars taken, you have your photographs taken, you have the metrics taken. So in that regard, you can't. But for those who simply want to check their particulars, those who are already on the National Voters Register, those who want to check that they are still on the register, they can check it online and confirm and have no business to go to the locations.
So there are those people who have expired national IDs, because you know how the process is for registering those who are first time registering for voters. Yes. So those who have old national IDs, yes, can they just present their NIN numbers and then all is well?
Indeed, the ID may have an expiry date, but the NIN remains. Yeah. And that is why what is required is actually the NIN, the National Identification Number, not necessarily the card, or not necessarily the validity of the card in terms of its expiry date. So if you have a NIN, you are a Ugandan citizen, and that is the first requirement. And the second is that you must be of age. Let me tell the people that are watching NTV this morning that this exercise is what determines whether you will participate in the general election of 2025-2026. This exercise of being on the National Voters Register is what enables one to vote. It is what enables one to be a candidate. It is what enables one to become an agent of a candidate. It's also the one that enables somebody to raise a petition in case there is a matter relating to elections. You miss this time, which ends on the 10th of February 2025, you will have said goodbye.
And I've seen some politicians also who are missing on the register previous elections. But of course, for your final word to the viewers there.
The final word is to call upon all Ugandans who are eligible to be as voters. They are citizens, they are above the age of 18 and above. Please use this window from yesterday to the 10th of February 2025 to go to the areas where the people in your localities, in your parishes are telling you to register if you are a new voter, to transfer if you wish to transfer, for the young voters, the young students who were registered by NIRA during that special exercise, to come, get registered as a voter, get allocated a polling station, and exercise your mandate as provided for in Article 59 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda of 1995. The right to vote is your right. Do not miss it. by missing on the National Voters Register.
Thank you so much. He is Julius Manguzi, the head of public relations and spokesperson of the Electoral Commission. Of course, you've heard it. It's your right. Don't let anyone intimidate you. This is the time that is so crucial for the 2026 general election that you have to participate in until the 10th of February. For now, I hand you to Dan Sebachije, the director there, and Rafat Shafiq, the producer, for a short commercial break, and then Priscilla Regina Naroga comes back with more conversations here on Morning at NTV.
Here's what it is, day 2 of the National Register Update exercise. Continuing on, we've heard from the Public Relations Officer at the Electoral Commission on this exercise and how they're going to do their very best to sensitize and mobilize Ugandans to participate accordingly. However, there are some reforms discussions that we were having with my guests in studio this morning. One of the other reforms is that Ugandans in the diaspora should be allowed to participate in the electoral cycle. New voters register must be accessible to all as a public document that can be inspected, and this is at no cost, among other recommendations in terms of reforms. Honourable, as we close this discussion, what is your stake on these reforms?
Of course, our government clearly know what they are supposed to do, but they won't do it because they have interests. If you remember that case of Mama Mbabazi, and the court ruling, what the court recommended should be done before even the 2021 general elections. Nothing was implemented. 10 years down the road, still nothing has been implemented. And that shows you that our government is deliberate to maintain the status quo, because the current status quo favors their election violence, favors rigging, and does not favor opposition. And because they want to continuously entrench themselves in government, they do not want to entertain anything involving electoral reforms. But of course, as sober Ugandans, we need to continuously remind them of their duty, that this country is for all of us, and if the electoral process is skewed in terms of favoring the ruling party, that's not how it is supposed to be done. We expect a leveled ground for all political parties to participate in elections, and that's only if we are deliberate in terms of establishing that Ugandans are free, in terms of making sure that we follow the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. Where we are now, of course, remembering what happened in 2021 general elections with abductions, killing of people, mass killing of people, like on the 18th of November here in Kampala. If nothing has been done in the electoral process up to now, it simply means it's going to be a repeat of what happened in 2021. We expect people to be killed again. We expect people to be abducted. As we speak now, we still have political prisoners. Guys who were arrested in 2021 are still languishing in prisons. So that's why we call upon government to do what they're supposed to do. And maybe on the lighter note, Priscilla, 24th of January, we're going to be at Cricket Oval with King Saha. Let's go and enjoy it.
All right. Thank you so much, Honorable Kirumira, MP Katikamu South, Mr. Timothy Chemonges. Thank you so much for your submissions. And this process is ongoing, so you and I are going to be seated on this table quite more often this year, 2025, as we build up towards the general elections 2026. As we crown up, we do have Rashul Adid, who is in West Nile, following up on the Peace Week. This is an annual event, and this particular year we are having the Chief Justice, the Justice and Constitutional Affairs Minister, as well as 8 bishops and cards from different faith representations, among others, converging in northern Uganda for the Peace Week. Good morning to you, Rashul.